Okay, so today I am talking about the threezero Robo Duo Voltron. Okay, and I have back here the Blitzway Voltron. I have the Robo Duo Dan Kuga. That is the box for the Robo Duo Voltron. I have back there the Bandai Soul of Chogokin Dan Kuga, the Soul of Chogokin Voltron, and then I have the Black Lion here. And then I have this little guy here, which I think is really cool, but I have that there to show some more updated ideas that I would have liked to have seen in the threezero. But here, I originally purchased one from Sideshow, and I canceled it. And the reason that I canceled it is because of the reviews showing that the arms were not connecting properly. And when I look at this, I just don't think, I never really thought it looked, in scale or the right proportions for Voltron. And I'm going to get into why that actually is true. It is not scaled correctly. But I did order a second one on Big Bad Toy Store. Both of them I had put a $30 deposit down. I didn't remember ordering the one from Big Bad Toy Store, but since I had already canceled the Sideshow and lost the $30 deposit, I wasn't going to lose another $30 deposit. So I'm like, well, let me just get it. Because I usually do order 2 Voltrons because I keep one in Lion mode and I keep one assembled. So that's what I did with the threezero. But I actually forgot that I had done that. But anyway, I decided to keep it because subsequent reviews showed that that particular problem was fixed. So I figured, oh, okay, I'll just get it. Because it is supposedly, the whole idea of this is it's supposed to be a more posable, more handleable Voltron, more playable Voltron than the Bandai. But I'm going to make the case that threezero doesn't actually make this mold. This is 100% that mold, just retooled. And what I'm saying is because I have handled third parties that have retooled Transformers and other toys, and they've rescaled them, made them larger, added in new features, but they're third parties, and I can tell that when you rescale something and retool it, there's some things that just don't tool properly, and they kind of make compromises to get them to work in the retooling. And I can see that in threezero's Voltron, that when they rescaled it, they changed the size and they retooled the SoC. Some of the retooling didn't go right, and you can see it in the mold. And one of the first indicators was the fact that the Lion arms did not connect because it was a retool of the SoC's connection mechanism. And when the first batch came off the assembly line, the retooling wasn't correct. So when you tried to plug these in, the mechanism inside the Black Lion wasn't retooled properly and they couldn't connect. So Bandai had to go back, or threezero had to go back and retool it. Now, I'm not trying to make the case that threezero has stolen the mold or any nefarious thing is going on. What Bandai has a history of loaning out their molds. They did it with their Godzillas for Playmates, and I'm pretty sure that they have done that here with threezero, where they have an agreement with threezero that they can use Bandai's mold and retool it and, sell it under the threezero brand. But I noticed that with the Dan Kuga, that it is very much the SoC mold retooled and repainted, because everything is pretty much the same. It's just a little bit retooling. I think the retooling on that actually is better than the retooling on this Voltron. And so I am a bit disappointed in the scaling and the proportions of this Voltron, and I'll go over why. I think it's lacking compared to the SoC quite a bit. Now, threezero's obvious goal was to make it, like I said, more handleable, more playable, and I do think they did accomplish that. It is more posable, and it is easier to handle. The transformation becomes more difficult because what they decided to do is not only retool Bandai's mold, but they also decided to add on the panels that are on the Blitzway. And I will tell you straight up, the Blitzway, it is designed with the idea that these panels were going to be incorporated. So as they molded it and as they engineered it, they did a beautiful job with making these panels blend into the Voltron, where you can't really, it looks like that's the way it's supposed to be. It's just blending everything in. You see how it covers most of the lion pieces, from a distance. It just looks gorgeous. It is a more stylized Voltron, but it is an original mold. It's Blitzway's original mold. Here, this is clearly Bandai's mold, and these panels are an afterthought. And you can see they don't fit over properly. They don't hide the lion legs properly. They just, it's very clear by looking at it. They just don't look like they belong. The back piece is not so much. Here you can still see the back piece, how it just has the ball parts showing and not the leg part. So it really blends in nice. Whereas here it's still showing, a lot of the leg still sticks out. But it works better on that back piece than it does on that front piece. And if you look at the yellow and blue lion, the paneling still, it does work better than the red and green lion, but I still think the Blitzway pulled it off much better, because again, this whole thing was designed from the ground up to have these panels, whereas this is the SOC retooled, and then the panels were attached as an afterthought. And it undermines its ease of transformation and its ease of handling, because the panels, because they're smaller, the pegs are tiny, it makes it really difficult. And because they're not part of the original design of the SOC, getting them under the legs and everything is a little bit more of a chore than it is here. So altogether, I will go over the whole, I'll break it down and I'll show you more of what I mean, why I can tell that this is a retool of that, and why it doesn't work so great. But anyway, let me go ahead and transform these into the lion modes and we'll compare them. Okay, so here's the SOC and the threezero right here. Now you can see in the, they're the same mold. It's just that this one is scaled differently. That's about it. But if you look, because of the panels down here, they actually cut into the back here, so you can see through it a little bit, where you can see the folding mechanism, so that it could fold and not hit up against this yellow piece. So they actually cut some out. These are just twisted differently, so that they have the same movement. But anyway, they have the same features, where this lifts up and there's a weapon underneath. This lifts up and there's a weapon underneath. Smaller scale, but the same. Now this one is, everything on the SOC is much tighter. This is a little bit looser. But one of the things I wanted to point out, and originally why I had returned this, is if you look, the SOC, this is a very tight piece, and it matches up. The jaw matches up with the top jaw. On the threezero, because it is a retool, this piece is looser because it's smaller, and it also is underbite. So the SOC is an original mold. This is the retooling. So in retooling it, this didn't come out properly, because if they had sculpted it themselves, I doubt they would have sculpted it to have that underbite. But when you look at the weapons, the plug-in points for the weapons are the same. It's just that the weapons are smaller on the threezero than they are on Bandai's, the Soul of Chogokin. But they're the same plugs. Everything's the same. The tails plug in the same. The plug-in pieces actually look the same, but of course the threezero is, again, is smaller. Threezero, I have the light on. Let me see if I turn the light off, if you can tell. The threezero is more chromed, the tail. You probably can't tell, because I can't really tell. But the Bandai is more plastic looking, gray. Bandai did chrome the connector, which I like, and threezero left it white. But as you can see, the connector is the same, just scaled differently. So, I doubt if you're going to make your own mold, you're actually going to do all this copying. So straight up, it is just a retool of the Bandai. That's what the threezero is. But anyway, that I did in transforming it. These panels are a little bit of a pain in the butt because of their small size, and the little tabs are, especially if you're older like me and your eyesight isn't that great, those little tabs are hard to get in. I did get them in, and you know, you'll get used to it if you do it a few times, but the transformation really isn't as easy as it is with the SoC, not having the panels, of course. Also, the legs manipulate much smoother on the SoC. The mechanism for moving around the legs is just, it's just better. You can feel the quality is just better on the SoC, and you'll if you have both of them, you'll be able to tell. Just move them around and you'll see the SoC, it feels much stronger, much sturdier. Just getting it to move away from the body is much smoother. The threezero, it's hard to get it to move away from the body, and you have to get it to move away from the body to get that piece under there. And I actually snapped off the leg a few times before the mechanism, I could even get the mechanism to just slide out. It just popped off the body and I just snapped it in. But it does have the same mechanism. It's just that it works much better on the SoC than it does on this one, because again, it's retooled. Okay, so that is the red line. Then I'm going to compare the black lines and show you some more of the retooling and more of the evidence that it is just a retooled SoC. Okay, so I wanted to point out the similarities, or if you look, the mechanism for connecting the blue and yellow line to the black line is exactly the same as the SoC. It has the button, it has this tab that you move out, right? But on the SoC, which did it first, I'm going to show you that the ability to disconnect the blue and yellow line is just much more elegant and works much smoothly. It has that little tab, and it's just easy to do. On the threezero, because again, retooling it, they had to make some adjustments, and getting it to disconnect is much more difficult. That one isn't as bad, but it's not as easy. Everything on the threezero, the tolerance has changed. So even though it is the same as the Bandai, it doesn't work as well as the Bandai, because changing the size created different tolerances, and stuff just doesn't work as smoothly as it does on the Bandai. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, but I am going to get these both into line mode. I have another Bandai in line mode, but I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these. But the transformation from Voltron to line modes is exactly the same between the two of these, because it's Bandai's design. Okay, so here's the black line, and to show you, same as the SoC, and if you've got it SoC, you already know this, the transformation is exactly the same because it's SoC's design. So getting the leg out is exactly the same as the SoC, where you open up the panel the same way as the SoC, and it has this tab here where you can hold and slide out the leg. But of course this is plastic, and the SoC part here is die cast. But this works fine. There's no, the tolerances here haven't changed to where it makes it any different. It just works fine. Okay, so here's the first point I want to make with the SoC and the threezero. The SoC and the threezero both have this same mechanism. You can see the SoC's design here, and threezero just has the same design. The difference is the SoC was designed this way, and changing into this mode is easy, and the head can lift up. Threezero, again, the tolerance has changed because this piece is actually too big, and getting the head up, you actually have to push the head forward to get it up, and then the head doesn't articulate up. Even the face inside, like right now, it gets a little stuck, not like the SoC. The SoC just slides up into the head, but it gets stuck on the jaw. But anyway, that's as far as the threezero can articulate upwards. And if you look, the head looks smallish against the black part of the body. The head is much tinier. It also doesn't slide back into the body here, so that it looks elongated. So to me, that head just doesn't look right in lion mode. And this is actually, of all the Voltrons I have, this is the lion mode, black lion mode, that I like the least because of this head sculpt. It doesn't work. Sorry, I have the camera too high. It just looks too small and it doesn't articulate well because, again, it's a retooling and it's not retooled well. So this is the Bandai, and you can see the Bandai, the head looks proper sized, and not only that, it articulates really well. Much, much better than the threezero. But it's Bandai's original design, and it's threezero just retooling Bandai's design. Okay, so the next point I wanted to make is the tail. In retooling it and shrinking down the figure, threezero actually retained the sculpt of the Bandai. The problem is that, let me get the tail here. So the Bandai is articulated on a ball joint, right? And you can see that they are the same mold. But this mold is smaller, and that ball joint, when they shrank it down, doesn't work. So they actually, looks like they shaved it. And this plugs in, it falls off like crazy, but it just plugs in and it does not articulate anymore. It lost its articulation in scaling it down. So this doesn't articulate anymore. If you try to articulate, it just keeps falling off. Every time I touch it, it just flops off. Because again, when it shrank down the size, that mechanism doesn't work properly. It's not an original mold, it's just a retool. This was molded to work this way. So it's Bandai's original design. So the black line is the biggest glaring example of threezero just retooling Bandai's mold. So that's an overhead view. And you see, now where threezero retooled for the better is, of course, the leg design. Most people did not like the gaps in the Bandai, so they retooled the legs, and this is threezero's, where they retooled it to have these so that you can hide the gap. And this whole thigh piece is completely redesigned. Now on my, I have two of these, so on my one I keep in Voltron mode, I have the retool, I have the third party. Somebody made these and I bought them, and I took apart the black line, I placed these on, but these actually are, they do make it look nicer, they make it look cleaner. I wasn't really that upset about having the gaps. They really didn't bother me too much, but it still does look better, so I figured. And I got the matte ones, I don't have the chrome ones, because I thought I wanted to keep the same coloring of the original design. So they had chrome ones as well, but I decided to go with these matte, or the same kind of shine of the original. But anyway, so again, that's more example. See, the tail just keeps falling off. If you touch it, so when you put it in Voltron mode, I would just take the tail off. This one, you can leave it in Voltron mode and the tail isn't going to pop off. It's fine. This one, it just falls off. And you just touch it the slightest, it falls off. So I wish threezero would have thought to at least redesign this tail instead of just copy Bandai's mold. And when it didn't work, they just kept it and shaved it down and pegged it in. It was kind of a lazy thing to do. I wish they had found a way to redesign the tails at least and make them fold into the bodies like the Blitzway does. The Blitzway is a more modern design. The Bandai's design is from 2017, and it works for the Bandai. I mean, it's cool, you know, it's fine, but having to pull the tails off and everything seems so yesterday, whereas the newer figures are coming out with fold away and hide away tails, which is much better. You don't have to pull them off the Voltron. You can just hide them away, and then you fold out the peg, and it pegs into the body really nice. So in the more modern Voltron, the Blitzway definitely does that better. than the threezero, and even better than the SOC. Now again, the SOC is very much like my original when I was a kid, so you know, I definitely don't mind that. And with the SOC, you can keep the tails on and actually slide them into the body with no problem. So I didn't have to take the tails off. On the threezero, I think I explained that before. You have to take the tails off, or it's not going to slide into the body, and they'll get stuck. So you got to take the tails off the red and green lion, or it's not. They're just not going to connect properly. Also with, and I may have mentioned how I don't like that they left these white and they didn't just chrome this out or make it silver like the rest of the body, because it stands out even when it's connected to the Voltron. You can kind of see it. It's not that big a deal. It's a minor nitpick, but you can see it. But anyway, I'm going to put them back in Voltron mode. I only transformed the red lion to show you. The green lion is pretty much the same differences. It has the underbite as well, and some of the tolerances are not the same, and pegging in the plastic tabs is still difficult. Also, with the threezero, I will say that the yellow and blue lion fared the best in retooling. Even though they are a little bit more difficult to disconnect from the black lion's body, they still retain most of what the SOC designed, that they're still pretty good and they feel good. So my two favorite lions of the threezero are actually the red and the blue, because they retain most of the tolerances of the SOC. So let's go back to Voltron. Okay, so here's them both in Voltron mode. The SOC and the threezero. Move the swords out of the way because... Okay, so let's go to the head sculpts. Now, for me, I prefer the Bandai. It just looks cleaner, and something else I like about the Bandai is the way, because of the way it's designed, you can sink the head down in and hide the bottom teeth into the body, so that it just looks more natural, like it's a head coming up from a neck. The threezero, in their retooling, lost the ability to sink the teeth down into the body, so they're exposed. The face sculpt is also elongated and it's softer. It doesn't have as nice molding, in my opinion. So I don't know if they just retooled the face from the Bandai. I think they just remolded their own face. But in retooling, again, they lost the ability to sink down to the body, which I prefer that on the SOC, where you can... so I like the SOC Voltron mode much better than the threezero. Now, where threezero, what their intention with this figure, and where I think it does work in Voltron mode at least, is it's more posable, especially from the leg standpoint. They redesigned the thighs and everything, so it's much more posable. It's got drop down hips and everything. And because it's more plastic, it's solid, it's a nice plastic, it's not a cheap plastic, and it still has weight to it. I think there's some die-cast or alloy in the feet. But because they use the more plastic, it makes it easier to pose, and like ab crunches and everything. So it does have better posability. So if you want a Bandai Soul of Chogokin with more posability, then there you go. That's where this one shines. However, if you are looking for a replacement for the Soul of Chogokin, honestly, everything that this copies off the Soul of Chogokin does much better. So if you're not looking for the posability, you just want a high-end Voltron, I would say go with the Soul of Chogokin. That's the original design, and everything is designed to work really well, and it does. It works great. I love the SOC, all the joints, all the way it ratchets and everything, just moving the parts around. Even though it doesn't have the posability of this one, I still like this one better. It just, the tolerances and everything, it designed to work really well. Again, because this is a retooling, some of the tolerances don't work right, and there's some glaring redesigns that just look funky, that just look weird. Oh, come on. So someone came to the door and interrupted me. But anyway, like I was saying, everything that this copies off the SoC, I think the SoC does better. And everything that this copies off of the Blitzway by far does better. If you are buying this as a stand-in for the Blitzway because you want the panels, I think this is a poor choice. The panels don't look as good, not close to looking as good. Just, I mean, look for yourself how the panels look. The panels on the Blitzway, they're designed from the ground up to work with this model. This is the panel slapped onto an SoC. So if this is a stand-in for this, then I would honestly think that you'll be disappointed in the long run going with this instead of getting this. Now, I know that this is very expensive, but you can get a $500 version, and this keeps going down in price. So I would hold off on this and wait for this, or if you can even wait longer, this is not the last Voltron being produced. Now, there's this one here that I really like. And yes, it's a little small, and it's, you know, a stylized little chibi or, you know, squished down version. But this company is making a larger size Voltron. And what I love about this one, which I wish they had done here if threezero had made their own mold, I wish because in this one you have to pull parts off, like the tails and everything. But with this one, you can actually fold the tails away. You don't have to pull anything apart. And with this one, if you can just transform from Voltron, from Lion mode to Voltron easy, the same way you could with the old, where you just fold up the legs. However, if you decide with this one that you want it to be more accurate to the cartoon and not have the legs exposed, after you transform it, you can just pop these off, and there's plastic pieces that you can snap on, and they hide the legs altogether, so they disappear. So that would have been cool with this one if they had done the same thing instead of these panels, which I don't think work very well because the tolerances and the little tiny pegging of them, and it's just a pain in the butt. But if it had where you didn't have to take off the tails, you could hide the tails like the threezero, like the Blitzway. You could hide the tails into the body, and then you could fold up the Voltron the way you did your original Voltron as a kid with the legs exposed. You know, that would be cool. But if you were wanting to make it more accurate to the cartoon, then you have the choice of popping off the legs like this one and then snapping on plastic covers, and then you would have it stand in as more accurate to the cartoon if you wanted to do that, because some people don't want a parts transform and other people don't mind parts transforming. Now, again, if you can hold out and avoid this one and wait for this company, because this company does have another one coming out, and it's an original mold. It's not the threezero mold retooled. I mean, the Bandai mold retooled. They're making a larger one, and I've seen the prototype, but it looks like they're using the same kind of features where you can pop off the legs in a larger size Voltron and replace it with the plastic panels. So you might be happier with that in the long run. Now, I don't mean to trash the threezero Voltron. It's just that I was not expecting what I got, and what I got was a Bandai Soul of Chogokin that was clearly retooled. This is not an original mold. It's just the Soul of Chogokin retooled. And I know I've said that a lot, but that's where I am disappointed, because I know threezero and I have their transformers that don't transform, and that was another direction that they could have taken, which I would have liked better. A lot of people want a Voltron that is very accurate to the cartoon, that doesn't have the backpack, which you have to have if you're transforming. But threezero could have gone the route where they created a highly articulate, 100% accurate to the cartoon, non-transforming Voltron, and I would have loved it, because I have their transformers that don't transform, and they're awesome. And I never thought I would like a non-transforming transformer, but that's where their talent lies, and they're so cool. And then they could have a box set, because for like me, who likes to have the lions, you could make a 100% accurate to the cartoon set of lions that don't transform, and you could place them in front of your non-transforming Voltron. And, you know, I would have been happy with something like that from threezero, because again, you cannot make 100% accurate Voltron that transforms from lion to Voltron, because if you watch the cartoon, the lions actually change shape in order to connect. So when it's in Voltron form, The back of the bodies on the blue and yellow lion shrink. The back of the bodies on the red and green lion shrink in order to be more humanoid looking in Voltron mode. So that's why I think I would have preferred a product from threezero like that instead of this here. So I don't really recommend this unless, of course, you want a highly articulated Voltron. Because I don't think the lion molds, if I had to rate, I would say the lion forms are a 5 out of 10, and I would give the Voltron mold a 7 out of 10 because of its ability to articulate much better than the SOC. But again, if you want the paneling system, then I would not get this one. I would really hold out for this one and find a way to afford this one, because this one does it right. This is the original design for these panels, and this is threezero just throwing on the panels onto a SOC, and you can clearly see it. I mean, even the back here, like you can see the gaps where on the Blitzway they kind of fold in and fill in with the lion's feet. So altogether, I mean, that's just my opinion, is that I would avoid this and go for either one of these two instead, unless, of course, you want the more articulation, because that's where this one shines. The quality of the plastic is good, and the articulation is really good. So that's the only reason I would recommend this one. So here, get a now. Oh, the last thing I wanted to mention is, again, I only have these two, and I'm pretty sure from handling both of these that these are retools of the SOC molds, but I don't have the other RoboDuo. So if anybody else, and now it might have already been, everybody might already be aware that that's what these are. I just was not aware that these were retools of Bandai's molds. But if you have, like, I know they make the Evangelion in RoboDuos, so maybe someone can comment. I know I don't get a lot of views, but if somebody has those, maybe they can comment as to whether or not those are retools of Bandai's products as well. Now, like I said, I don't think there's anything nefarious going on. I think that it's straight up that threezero has an agreement with Bandai to just retool their products and, restylize them and sell them in a more posable form. And I'm sure Bandai is getting paid for the use of their molds. But in my opinion, and I think I made my point as best I could, that this is a retooling of that. And the RoboDuo, I didn't actually compare the two, but maybe I'll do that in another video. But I have the same impression from that it is a retool of that. So anyway, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think down below in the comments. And sorry, the video is a little bit long, and excuse my mess.